Gardevoir EX was potentially the best deck in our current standard format, but with the rotation and temporal forces, a lot of things will be changing for this archetype. I want to begin by looking at Ryan Antonucci's first place list from Knoxville Regionals and discuss the cards that we are losing from this Gardevoir deck, because we are losing some very important cards. Mirage Step Kirlia will be rotating out of standard format, as well as Shining Arcana Gardevoir. So not only are we losing part of our potential setup plan with Mirage Step, which is used quite frequently in Gardevoir decks, we're also losing Shining Arcana Gardevoir, which is not only part of our draw support, it also has some energy acceleration built in, and it was one of the main attackers of the deck. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop there, because we are also losing Zacian V, which is one of the other best attackers in the deck, as well as Mew from Celebrations and Battle VIP Pass. In addition to Battle VIP Pass, also Fog Crystal will be rotating out. But we do have the replacement of Buddy Poffin for Battle VIP Pass, and I guess kind of for Fog Crystal. So we know that this archetype is losing a lot of its typically played cards when we rotate into the new standard format for the beginning of April. The first tournament that'll be played at is EUIC. And Gardevoir has really fallen down the ranks according to Japanese tournament results thus far. But it's not all bad for Gardevoir, and I do see a world where Gardevoir can still be played, so that's why today we're going to look at 4 new Gardevoir EX deck lists for the Temporal Forces standard format. Before we do that, remember to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG content, and check out my sponsors and affiliates if you'd like to support my channel. PokeCollect.com, you can use code CELIO5 for 5% off there on pre-orders for new products, other sealed products, even Japanese booster boxes, and single cards. Go to PotownStore.com for all of your Pokemon TCG Live code card needs and save 5% off with code CELIO there as well. I also have affiliate links for Dragon Shield sleeves and Into the AM apparel. Into the AM has some of the most comfortable and cool looking clothes. I have my wardrobe full of Into the AM apparel, and I suggest you also doing the same. Finally, check out tcgbulk.com for the safest and fastest way to sell all of your unneeded bulk cards, so you can start buying new cards instead. You can check out all the links and coupon codes down below. Now let's get into the video. We'll begin with this first place deck list from a Japanese City League tournament. We'll see that we are back to the full 4 of Refinement Kirlia now that Mirage Step has rotated, and the evolution line is looking a little empty with just 2 Gardevoir EX and the Shining Arcana Gardevoirs gone. Now that does mean that we're going to need some other attackers. Note that Gardevoir EX can be a pretty okay attacker, especially against decks that can't one-shot it. So you can swing for 190, take a hit, and then maybe hit again, or collapse Stadium or Tauros that Gardevoir away. That's definitely a combination that's possible. Not in this deck list with the Tauros, but it does have the collapse Stadium. There are 4 basic attackers in this deck list, and this is one of the reasons why I chose this deck list as our first example, because it shows off 4 different attackers the deck can use. 3 of them are cards that we currently have available to us: Drifloon, Screamtail, and Mimikyu, with the 4th being the new Fluttermane card that's coming out in Temporal Forces. Mimikyu is going to be the most niche out of these, I believe, because it's going to be good against decks that don't have something to swing through its ability that says that it can't be damaged by EX Pokemon. So it's going to be good as kind of a wall Pokemon that can also attack for a bit of damage. Screamtail and Drifloon both benefit from having their HP boosted by things like Bravery Charm, Luxurious Cape, and the new A-Spec Heroes Cape, which you see is included in this deck list. So Drifloon and Screamtail can both get up to 300 plus damage with the help of these new tools, since their attacks both function off of the amount of damage counters on them. And so now for Fluttermane, this is a 90 HP basic ancient Pokemon. So Fluttermane and Screamtail are both ancient, which means they could both benefit from the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, although that is omitted from this specific deck list. Fluttermane has the ability that reads, as long as this Pokemon's in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities. At the moment, this looks to be very good against Lost Zone decks to shut off Comfey. It can also be good against Chi and Pal. It stops them from using their Shivery Chill ability to search out water energies from the deck. And if you are against a deck where the ability is shutting down your opponent's strategy and slowing them down, you can just use Fluttermane as a decent attacker with the Flying Curse attack, doing 90 damage, and then put 2 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. It definitely looks to me like Gardevoir is going to be slower in post-rotation, even slower than it already was. So having something like Fluttermane or Klefki up in the active to maybe slow down your opponent, or maybe even mimic you to wall your opponent out for a couple of turns while you establish a board, seems good to me. In addition to the health boosting tools we also have Technical Machine Evolution and 3 Arven in this deck list, in addition to a town store to find those tools. Since Arven can find the Technical Machine Evolution and start evolving up your Curlius for you, I don't think I'd hate to see an Earthen Vessel in this deck list as well. Get some energy out of the deck, maybe help you put more energy into the discard pile, but also allows you to Arven for exactly Technical Machine plus Earthen Vessel. That way you have the energy guaranteed to use the Technical Machine Evolution. The glaring weakness about this build of Gardevoir with the 3 health boosting tools is that if your opponent Lost Vacuums one of those tools off the Pokemon and then the Pokemon is knocked out, your opponent can go for double knockout turns where they Lost Vacuum a tool and then they knock out the next Pokemon. However, that's not the largest concern for me right now, looking at how decks are being built and how the meta is forming, because Lost Vacuum does not seem to be very popular or very needed against the general field. Keep in mind that Path to the Peak has rotated, so that is a major reason why we'll see a decrease in Lost Vacuum, because decks no longer need to have all of those outs to remove Path to the Peak. The next deck list we'll take a look at has a couple of differences from the first one. We'll note here that it has the Gallade with Buddy Catch. I definitely think with the rotation of Shining Arcana Gardevoir that we do have room for something like this Gallade. It searches your deck for any supporter and puts it into your hand, and it also has a decent attack that does 160 damage and moves an energy back to one of your benched Pokemon. Another new inclusion we'll see here is Damage Pump, which can move damage around on your own Pokemon. So maybe this can be used when you have energy stuck somewhere on your board and you need to put more damage on Drifloon or Screamtail, but I'm personally not a huge fan of this Damage Pump at first glance. Something I mentioned about the last deck list was the combination of Earthen Vessel plus Technical Machine Evolution, because you could search them both out at the same time with Arven, and we'll see that this deck list does play to Earthen Vessel. Also note that that is a Professor's Research Sada and a Professor Tauros scenario. It confused me for a second, and I thought that was a Professor Sada's Vitality down there in the full art section, but it is not. It's just a Professor's Research. But funny enough, this next deck list we're looking at does have 3 Professor Sada's Vitality in it, because it's also running the new Raging Bolt EX. What the heck is this? I thought it was a meme the first time I looked at it, but the more I think about it, it actually seems a tiny bit viable. So Raging Bolt EX is a 240 HP basic Pokemon. Now note, with Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, that goes all the way up to 300 HP, so that's actually massive. It has the Climactic Descent attack for a lightning and fighting energy. It does 70 damage, and you may discard any amount of basic energy from all of your Pokemon, and this does 70 damage for each card you discarded in this way. So the thing about Gardevoir EX is that it can only accelerate energy to Psychic Pokemon, and it can only accelerate Psychic Energy. But with the help of the Buddy Catch Gallade that can search our deck for any supporter card, it might not be that hard to use Raging Bolt EX as our one-hit knockout machine in this deck. The Ancient Booster Energy Capsule also helps with Screamtail, and can also be attached to Fluttermane. So I believe the strategy here would be to take 1 or 2 big one-shot KOs with the help of Professor Sada's to accelerate an energy to Raging Bolt, and then manually attach the other type of energy Raging Bolt needs, and then Psychic Embrace a bunch of Psychic Energies to any of your Psychic Pokemon, and then use Raging Bolt's attack for one-hit knockouts. Even if you could just do that like once in a game and then the opponent doesn't return KO Raging Bolt because it has 300 HP, that's probably going to be very strong. But of course, we also have the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule on Screamtail, which will allow it to hit really high damage as well. I should also note that Cryptomaniac's Deciphering is a really strong supporter card in this deck, since it allows you to search your deck for 2 cards and put them on the top of your deck, and you could just draw into them with Refinement or Concealed cards. So it's a pseudo search for any 2 card supporter, so that's going to be very strong in here as well. Lastly, this one is potentially even more of a meme than the Raging Bolt deck list. This one includes 2/2 line of Espathra EX. So Espathra EX is a Stage 1 Grass EX Pokemon, but its pre-evolution Flittle is a Psychic type, so you could Psychic Embrace to it before it evolves. Then once you get your energies on it, you evolve then. It has the ability Dazzling Gaze. As long as this Pokemon's in the active spot, attacks used by your opponent's active Pokemon cost 1 more colorless energy, and that synergizes with its only attack Psyball, which for 1 Psychic does 30 damage plus 30 more damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. Note that this is also Grass type, so that means you're going to hit weakness against Charizard EX, which is poised to be the absolute best deck in the post-rotation standard format. So we have a few ideas of how Gardevoir EX deck lists might look in the post-rotation standard format, and they seem decent enough. They're performing a little bit better here and there in Japanese tournaments, but definitely a huge fall from grace compared to the power level of this deck in the pre-rotation standard format. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.